Hello and welcome back to the Tea and Soju C-Drama podcast, your safe spot for C-Drama chatter. I'm your host, Liliana, and it's time to sit back, grab your tea, and let's chat Asian dramas. In today's episode, I am joined by the Certified Noonas, and together we're going to be reviewing the Spirealm. Just before we get into the podcast episode, some housekeeping. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on the platform you listen on. That really helps the podcast reach other listeners. For more content, check out Patreon, where you can find behind the scenes, first impressions, movie reviews, and more. Finally, if you'd like to chat to me or find a community, check out Discord, Instagram, and other socials. The link for all of my socials and the Certified Noonas socials will be in the episode notes. So, guys, I was just saying these guys were the first podcast that I ever listened to, and they're like a household name. You guys might know them, but I'm going to go ahead and let themselves, introduce themselves. So, guys, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Hello. We are the Certified Noonas. Well, three quarters of the Certified Noonas. Jessie had to work, so she couldn't be here. We have been podcasting for almost 7 years about Asian dramas and music. And so I'm Natalia.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Sky.
Yeah, and that's basically, I think that's basically it.
That is. Yeah. I just was curious. I'm sure people know, but how did you guys get into like Asian drama podcasting? Because I know you've been doing it for a long time now, for 7 years. That's a while to be podcasting.
Well, it was Sky. Sky did it.
Yeah.
We were in like a group chat on Twitter way back in the day. And we were like, we all have such fun Asian drama opinions. Wouldn't it be fun to do a podcast? And then Sky then created a subgroup with the other three of us and said, wouldn't it indeed?
She's like, so was that for real? And we were like, sure.
We're like, yeah, sure, man. Absolutely. And then we did. And that was as easy as it was to get into podcasting back in the day. She said,
like,
okay,
let's do it. And then you guys just went for it. And 7 years later, here we are.
Pretty much. Like the first.
Luckily, we learned some things along the way.
Yeah. Like the first like 6 months is some rough recordings. Like they're still there. You can still listen to them. We won't pretend we didn't make some questionable recordings, but I feel like at this point we've really like figured out what we're up to. But
I had to go back to here I've only been recording for it's gonna be 3 years in August.
Congratulations.
I know, it's great. And I had to go back and listen to one of my earlier episodes, and I was like, cringing, because I was like, oh god, I never want to hear these ever again. Like, I don't think I want to anymore.
It makes sure
I'm just gonna pretend.
Pretend wipe them like completely.
I was like, should they just disappear? And I was like, no, do you know what? It's a journey. I'm leaving them there.
Exactly.
That's where it began.
The first thing of anything you try isn't going to be your best effort, but it's all part of the process,
I remember like having this very dingy microphone that did not work very well. And like all of this, and it was like a borrowed microphone, even it wasn't even mine. I was like, do you know what, we'll do it. But it's been a while. I think we learn a few things along the way from
well, we started out on Skype. Like that's how Asian, we did a whole migration. We did Skype, and then we went to Zoom, and then we moved to StreamYard, and now we're on we use Streamlabs now. So we go on a real journey of technology through the years.
Yeah. And it's just a learning curve for everything, even from like distributing it to, just even I don't know how you guys also don't run out of ideas to like podcast. It's wild to me.
We do.
Come up with stuff. There's always something to come up with.
There's always a new drama, right?
Yeah.
That we can.
True.
There's always something that happens in the world. There's always, I don't know, it's kind of like, what are you currently into? And I think that's the main thing that we learned was following what we wanted to, rather than like being too worried about gotta cover this, gotta cover that, gotta keep it too professional. Like, if you're using your time, so much of your time on your hobby already, might as well like watch stuff that you want to watch. Like, do things that you enjoy. And
Yeah.
that
And we
helps
also like when
follow
we
our
first
nose
got
with what we cover.
when we first got started, because there's four of us, arranging our schedules can be really difficult. And when we first got started, we were like, it has to be all four of us all of the time. So like if our regular recording night isn't working for somebody, we got to figure out something else. And in the last year or two, we've really loosened up in that a lot. And we're like, oh, okay, one of us can't be here, two of us can't be here. That's fine. We're just going to still record. We might record something different because we want those other people to be here for that specific episode. But it's okay if it's just like one of us, maybe not. We find it's more fun to have somebody to talk to,
one person to talk to,
you know, especially if that one person is not Natalia.
Yeah, because I'm the only one who knows how to run the recording software, so. So if I'm not available, like, we might move the episode. Do a new recording date.
Yeah. I will say any of my episodes that are drama trio episodes, so that'll be like me, Jess, and Caitlin, those tend to run the longest because we just kind of forget that we're talking about, you know, that we're even recording. You're just chatting to friends. So those end up being like some of my favorite episodes to record. So because obviously when I started, it was just me, and it was just me for like the first 6 months, 8 months, and then I started having guests on, and I was like, this is way more fun when there's like other people to talk
when you're not just talking to yourself in an empty room.
Yeah.
I was like, this is way more fun this way. So although I do like a lot of solo episodes still, because sometimes it's just easier if I want to like record something fast and quick, but a lot of the time I'll have like the drama trio come in and the three of us will record together, and like that leaks into like Jess's podcast and Caitlin's, because the three of us have like different podcasts. So it you know, you kind of record for here and there, but you just got to find what works for you. Like we know it's like we tend to do that specific day at that specific time, because like they're 5 hours behind me, so we have to like you know, do that. And then I think Caitlin is either 6 or 7 hours behind, so we have to like try and make times work. But we found one specific time and I'm like, that time works fine, we stick with the same time every, just, you know, it's the easiest thing
before we started recording, we were joking around about how all three of the four of us are in one time zone, and then Sky is an hour behind the rest of us. But it actually we actually live very far away from one another, and it would take a very long time to actually like drive to any one point. And because, you know, Canada and the US are massive land spaces that have very few time zones in them. So, you know,
she's great.
When we started, we had 3 time zones, though.
That's true, because I lived in one time zone. So it was like I was 1 hour ahead. Sky and Jesse were in the middle, and then, or not Sky and Jesse, sorry. Amanda and Jesse were in the middle, and then Sky was an hour behind. So it was like a big.
That's harder. That's harder to like conjugate when you've got like such different time zones to throw.
We used to base our schedules off of like Korean Standard Time, because we were like, okay, that's the same for everybody. So we will say we're recording at, you know, noon in Korea, and it would be like, okay, that means you know, whatever, right?
Yeah. I tend to go like when it's for, you know, when I'm recording, I tend to say, look, it's UK time. I don't know what your time zone is. Like, just that's the easiest thing to say. But the thing is, it gets to a certain time of the year, which did happen. So it's when the clocks change. So we had, once we were recording, it just happened to fall on the weekend that the US clocks had changed, the UK clocks had not. So like it threw everything out, because like time zones were not the same and we were going like by a different time. So yeah, that was fun. Somebody showed up about 45 minutes late. Technically they were on time.
Like
They were
times up like every day. You think that like you'll get used to the time change, but you never do. It gets you every time. Twice a year you get got by the clock's changing, but
it does every single time. And it's not like it comes around every year.
I know. So you'd think, I'll know. I don't even know like when it happens. It's always a big mystery to me. And my husband's like, "Oh, the clocks are changing this weekend," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean?"
We always joke in like church circles that there's like 2 weeks a year where like that there's certain families are going to show up at the end of the service or they're going to show up an hour early for service.
Yeah, that was
and it's
that was
always
my
the same families, right? And you're like,
that was my family growing up. We would, yep.
See, but it's okay if you show up the hour early. It's worse when it's like an hour.
Hi, I'm here for coffee. Like,
pretty much.
Yeah. All right, guys, should we get into this review? Right.
Sure.
I am just going to go through the MDL synopsis, which isn't very big. I was like, this is a very short synopsis for this show.
Very concise.
It's very concise, isn't it? Like MDL synopses are always like such a hit or miss. I really should just switch over to like Asian Wiki because they tend to be slightly better, but I was like, oh, right. So the MDL synopsis reads, Ling Ju Shui finds himself inexplicably thrust inside a mind-bending reality dictated by an enigmatic virtual reality game where he must pass 12 doors to escape. The catch, each door initiates new mysteries to solve and conditions to abide by. I mean, that is like pretty concise.
Pretty much.
It is what the show is about.
like it sort of makes you think that like he's stuck in the game the whole time, but like he gets like a week between levels, like he's just out doing his thing. But not
that he works. He doesn't seem like he works.
No,
he just quit his job.
Yeah,
he's true. That is true.
Right at the very
that is very true. So there is actually, this is adapted from the web novel Kaleidoscope of Death by Shi Zi Shu, which I think that's such a
better title.
I love that title.
That's such a good title. I've been updating my husband who's not watching the show with me. He's just sitting next to me while I watch it. And then when I told him the original title was Kaleidoscope of Death, he was like, "Well, why wouldn't they have named the show that? That is a sick title." I'm like, I know.
It makes so much sense, like for what the novel stands for and like specific reasons. It makes so much sense, like for it to be the name of the novel rather than, I mean, I guess the Spirealm is okay, but like I feel like English titles for Chinese shows always like are a letdown. They're always
like you look at the direct translation of titles and it's so good, and then you see the like official translation, you're like, oh, it's terrible. You've gone.
And then sometimes you find out that it's something like I'm not saying that is what it is for this, but that like in Chinese the characters would be, it would use the same character. So like Spirit is one of the same characters that's in Kaleidoscope, so it like has this double meaning or something. And you're like, oh, that's even better, right? Like, oh, okay, right?
Now I think the most recent one that came up was it was the original title that the title they'd been using was The Lament of the River Immortal, and that was like
great title,
epic. No, they then changed it to just Feud. That's it.
And that doesn't intrigue you to watch it, okay?
No.
Like, especially since I assume that's a historical or like a
xianxia. It's a xianxia.
So it's like, yeah, of course there's going to be a feud in it. There's a feud in all of them. Like, but I need a little bit of spice.
It's like the rom-coms and they just are all some generic with love in the title. And you're like, I need something give me something a little bit more, like Natalia's been watching Ski into Love. Like, at least that gives me something, right?
Well,
like
something incorrect. Since it was not about skiing, it was about snowboarding, but,
it puts, at least you will remember that title goes with that one. Whereas, there's so many, you watch a bunch of love rom-coms and then somebody's like, did you watch this one? You're like, I have no idea what's it about. Maybe. Like, and you have to go through and like, oh yeah. Okay. I have watched that one.
I feel like every year there's a specific word that they go for. Like last year it was blossom. So blossom everything.
Yeah.
So there's always like one specific word that they'll go.
Yeah. But Kaleidoscope of Death is so good.
I know, it's such a good title, but no, that it was not meant to be. So we have two versions of this show. We have 78 episodes of 20 minutes, which is what shows up on MDL. But then they changed that into 38 episodes of 42 minutes, which is what you get on Viki. So it's exactly the same thing. They just sort of cut it slightly different. This aired, well, it had an interesting story. It
air quote aired.
Aired on February 2nd, and it was literally up for 2 hours on iQIYI. Now, I did not know this. So Haley, a very great listener of the podcast, she explained to me that for them to kind of air stuff outside of China, even if it's not going to air in China, it has to air in China for them to be able to sell the rights to that show to anywhere else. So if they want to just sell a show to like Viki or View or whatever it may be, they need to have aired it in China. Hence why they dropped it on iQIYI for 2 hours and then took it off, because it now means they've aired in China for 2 hours and now they can sell the rights.
Listen, I do love a good loophole, shenanigan.
I feel like Chinese people that work for these stations have become the best at like finding loopholes and exploring them when it comes to trying to air something that they're not supposed to air because of censorship. So yeah, this is why it aired for about 2 hours on iQIYI on February 2nd, and then they took it off, sold the rights, and then it was rebroadcasted again, I think, on April 9th on View, and now it's also on Viki. So that's kind of like the story of why there's 2 dates for this show, which is, it's wild.
That makes more sense than I remember when it happened, Reddit was a buzz about it because they were like, oh, they must have pulled it because of gay content. So I'm watching this show and I'm like, all right, I'm waiting for this.
Put your glasses on.
Yeah, I'm wiping the lenses of my glasses, okay, I'm waiting for this crazy gay content that's gonna get it pulled into. No, there's no. Listen, no. If you have eyes to see, you can see the gay content, but it's not explicit enough for it to get banned. No. So I'm just okay, I don't think that was the actual case.
Yeah. No. Well, she said, Haley also mentioned that although one of the biggest reasons for this to be because it's based on a BL novel, it obviously can't pass censorship, but it's not the only reason, or even one of the biggest ones. It's also because it includes violence, bloody scenes, and cross-gender dressing. So all of those are a strike against the show from airing in China. But yeah, this is the way to get around it, apparently. They can drop. See, I was hoping there's another one that aired on Yoku, which is also based on a BL. I think it's Dark and I can't remember the title. It stars Stephen Zhang. I'm not going to remember.
I have it on somewhere. I have it on somewhere. Don't worry about that. Justice in the Dark. Justice in the Dark.
Yeah, so that's based on a BL as well. And I was like, they aired a couple of episodes. I was like, oh, maybe they'll do the same thing. No, we haven't seen that one quite yet, apparently. But who knows? Maybe they'll sell it again internationally.
That's
like it
based
happens
on
with
a priest novel, so you know that one's explicitly gay.
Exactly.
Based on a priest novel, you know.
Look, I'm not even gonna start on the amount of shows that I wish they would release, and they're just gonna hold
Just
in the
hide them
vault
from
until
us.
yeah. Because the thing is, I suppose this one is like a slightly less budget show than something like, you know, Immortality or something like that. That's like huge, big budget. They're not going to show. They're going to hold on to that until they're allowed to air it again. But look, censorship it changes daily. Like I feel like it changes daily. So hopefully one day it'll come around. So yeah, this is obviously an Aichi show. It filmed from 11th of November 2022 to the 3rd of March 2023. So it's been sitting for a while. And it was filmed in Chengdu, Sichuan, which is actually where Wang Hedi is from, Dylan Wang. So everybody always jokes about his very heavy accent, so that's where he's from. So this is directed by Danny Pang. The screenwriter is Gao Wei, and then we have just the two male leads. First male lead is Xie Zi Guang. He's been acting since 2018, and he is actually an idol actor from the group X9. I had no idea because he didn't feel like an idol actor to me.
Yeah.
Like the other actor, the other male lead felt more like maybe he was in an idol group, but listen, talent doesn't have a look, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
True. I agree. I have nothing against idol actors. If they've got it, they got it. So I mean, so he's been in Blossom. Look, it's coming back around the Blossom we talked about. So Blossom from 2024. He's also been in Strange Tales of Jiang Chen from 2024 and Please Classmate from 2021. And then we just have the other male lead who is called Huang Junji, and he's been acting since 2016. And he's been in Novoland Pearl Eclipse from 2021 and Truth or Dare from 2021 and Dr. Cutie from 2020. So that's, the two main actors. There are other actors, but that's really the two main people that the show is about. So that is all the information of the show. And now we can just go into non-spoiler thoughts. What did you guys think about this show?
I really enjoyed it. Like I had a good time. I mean, I felt like it dragged a little bit in sort of like the second half, but then it came back around and I was right back in it. So like I had a good time with it. I enjoyed it. Horror's not usually my genre, and I found it watchable. Like it wasn't something that I had to like frequently be like, okay, I can't watch any more of this. It's too heavy for me or anything. I just had a good time with it. Yeah. So, I like the vibes.
I really like horror. So this was like, I felt like it was a fun sort of sci-fi fantasy horror blend. It worked really well. It did feel really like it felt the timing of it, like up until you get to like the end of the 10th door, it's like paced, like each door sort of gets an arc. And then all of a sudden I'm like, we've only got like 4 episodes left for the end of it. What are we doing here, Joe? What are we doing? So it was like it was following like a strict pace, and then it wasn't. But I thought the acting was really good. Obviously, some of the special effects are, it was, it is what it is sometimes. I've seen way worse, way worse in much higher budget shows. So I'm not going to complain about it. I just thought it was like fun. It had really fun, like side characters, much to my chagrin, as Sky can tell you. But I thought it was good crack. I thought it was good.
I thought one of the things for me that I thought was good as far as the special effects go is sometimes with the Chinese dramas you can tell that it's filmed against a blue screen and then they've CGI'd in the background. And there were times where you could kind of tell that, but with this having so many different various settings and stuff, I really didn't find that it was nearly as obvious if that's what they were doing. Like there was a couple of times I was like, okay, this is clearly that, but like it wasn't nearly as like, oh, okay, this is fake, right? Like a lot of times it felt like, oh, okay, they went and they filmed in a castle. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like it. So some of the special effects, not great. Some of the special effects, very well done.
Good.
So like,
I enjoyed it. I'm not typically a person that really cares too much about like the mechanics or the like scientific I usually really don't care. Like I'm an easy sell with a lot of stuff. I did struggle with not getting enough mechanics in this show, like as far as of the game itself and the way, and it's because I mean you only have so much time to cover ground on what you're doing. Like I totally understand, but still, if they took like 3 sentences to explain to me how people can end up on the same level but also go back, like I mean, there's just it's so complex, and they were just kind of always like it's complex, and then they just wouldn't talk about it.
It's too difficult to explain right now, so we never will.
yeah.
We're just not going to reveal most things. Gotcha. Okay.
It kind of felt like it could have both been longer and also shorter. Like it felt like it dragged a bit, but it also felt like if there'd been like 20 more episodes, maybe we would have got a little more meat to some of it. So yeah.
And I think I agree. And the thing is, it's even not necessarily worse, but when so Haley she's read the book and she was explaining to me some of the things, and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Why was this not used in the show? I don't understand.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, and one of the reasons is the exact reason why they go into the doors in the first place. Which I'm not sure. It's a spoiler for the novel. It's not necessarily a spoiler for the show because we don't necessarily talk about it. And in the show, they just kind of end up in the game a lot of the time.
It's like they played this like banned video game, and by just like looking at the video game, suddenly you are now like the next door you open, you're in. Like, okay, sure.
I mean, our main male lead, so Jishri, like he kind of plays the game exactly like he plays a demo of the game, it seems, in like this game room, and then he gets thrust into the actual game later on. But I'm like, but how did we get here? But a lot of the other people, a lot of the other people, they're just there already, and I'm like, but how? So I agree. I feel like they could have explained the mechanics of it a little bit. And the thing is, the mechanics of the actual game itself doesn't affect any like BL vibes or any, like it has nothing to do with that. So they could have used it. So I don't understand why they didn't. I will say I did find the stories really interesting, and the fact that, every door you kind of got a very different story from the last. So that worked really well for me because it kept the show interesting. But like Natalia was saying, the pacing seemed off because for the first however many episodes, the first 10 doors, you have like a couple of episodes per door. And like you, I was like, hang on, I've only got about 4 episodes left. I've got 2 doors left.
Wait a second. How are we doing this?
Yeah, and it's the biggest 2 doors. It's like it's door 11 and 12.
Yeah,
it's the culmination of the show.
Everything's been building to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When I first started watching it, I watched like 6 or 8 episodes, and then it sat for a little bit because life got busy, and I went back to it, and for some reason I had it in my head that it was a 24 episode. And so I was like at 20, and I was like, we just did door 3. Like, where are we going here? Right? Like, it was like, what? And then I was like, oh, I'm only like halfway through. Okay. All right. It's still, the math's not mathing, but like, okay. That, fair.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it is. I feel like pacing, if I'm going to complain about something in a show, it's always going to be, I feel like it's always going to be pacing. Ugh. Right, guys, should we review that? Not review, should we rate this? And then we can get into all the spoilers and, spoil the heck out of this show. So ratings go as follows. One teacup, it was something I watched. It wasn't good, but something made me finish. And that's like your 1s to your 5.5 on MDL. Two teacups, the okay ones, dramas I don't really recommend, but they were an okay background watch. And that's a 6 to a 7 on MDL. Three teacups, the enjoyable ones, good dramas, they're enjoyable. And I would recommend to people who enjoy this genre. And that's your 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. Four teacups, the loved ones. These are dramas that I really loved. There might be a couple of problems with it, but overall, an enjoyable drama that I would recommend to a wider audience. And that's 8.5 to your 9.5. And then you have the five teacups. So these are like your rose glass, no faults dramas. This rating is reserved for those dramas that you love so much that you are willing to ignore any problems they may have. And that's your elusive 10s on MDL. So, guys, what would you end up rating this show?
I was saying to Natalia, I was probably sitting solidly around like a 7.5, so like a 3 teacup. And then there was like the plot gets twisty at the end, and I was like, okay, that's like I usually see the plot twist coming, and I did not see the plot twist coming.
Did not see it.
Same, which is saying something. I usually do. Yeah,
that gets an extra star for me. No, so like I kind of feel like I gotta give it a 4, like maybe a high 3.5 teacups.
You can do, yeah, you can do halves. Like we can do halves.
it really just, it was enjoyable. I had fun with it. I would recommend for other people to watch it, and yeah, like I said, the plot twist was twisting, and so that works for me.
I rarely get got by dramas, but I certainly did get got a few times by this one. And I would say, like, I would rate it probably an 8.5 on MDL is probably what I will rate it once I remember to go update that. So I guess I'm solidly on the 4. Like, I think that even people who aren't really into horror, because like Amanda really liked it, would still find this totally watchable, because it's like, it's horror, but it's not scary. And it's not particularly gory, except for like a few light gore situations. It's
like conceptually gory. If you think about
if you think about it too hard,
seeing what you're seeing, then it's gory, but like the actual physical gore is not always there.
So I think I'd go with a 4 here.
What about you, Sky?
I think I'm gonna have to go with a 3, and it might be even a 2.5, but I'm gonna be generous and say 3 teacup probably. I will say I don't typically rate things, so like that's not even something I typically think about. I enjoyed it to a point. I found it so slow at times though that I did think that it suffered a little bit. And I don't typically say that of shows that often. It did feel pretty draggy to me, but I'm also pretty lenient when it comes to virtual reality type shows because it is a genre that I enjoy. And you kind of have to be you have to be merciful on some types of genres, in my opinion, just because you don't get quite as many of them.
Yeah.
So for me, the ones that I like time travel or virtual reality or things like that, like, yeah, you can sit here and pick them apart all day as far as, again, if the mechanics are, but that's usually not really the point of the show. And that really wasn't the point of the show here. So, like, as far as I enjoyed the point of the show, I enjoyed, like, the found family aspects of the show and things like that. As far as the storytelling, I thought that was actually pretty weak, which that's usually kind of what I'm looking for when I'm watching a show. So that's why I had to go kind of a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I do think, though I agree that the horror elements are bad, I do think that there are a lot of people that would not. You do have to be okay with horror to a point in order to even turn on this show. Like all I was saying was I do think that the horror elements are enough that you do have to be okay with horror in order to watch this show. I'm not saying you have to like love it or necessarily, but it's not like a one episode in and out situation.
For sure.
It is, but there are times where they definitely back off on it to where stuff happens. Blood should be involved. Blood was obviously not involved for what so like the game element, they definitely use that to their advantage to just be like,
it's not real. It's a game.
Yeah. The game takes it away.
Don't worry about it.
The things that were happening, it's like, no, that would be very messy and very terrifying.
Yeah, for sure.
If we were actually seeing it.
I definitely had times where, like, say I was watching it at night, like closer to bedtime or something, and I would hit something and be like, no, you know what, we're gonna stop and I'll watch because this is getting a little too much for me. But I also think that because it's all the different stories, I can't say to somebody, oh, if you're okay with this type of horror, you'll be okay. Because it's like all the types of, it's monster horror and it's body horror and it's, right? So like there's, oh, and it's serial killer horror and it's all the types of horror are in there. So like I was saying to the girls the other night, like for me, there was one world that objectively not that scary, but for me it hits my personal fear icks.
Yeah.
So like while it wasn't gory at all and it wasn't particularly like violent, that was the one that for me I had to watch during the daytime, and I had to make sure it was like separate from nighttime and bedtime for me, because otherwise I knew I was going to be, you know, having issues. So yeah, like I think like Sky was saying, like it might not be for everybody, because, and maybe you're okay with horror, but you're not okay with all horror. So maybe you're gonna kind of watch with your eyes closed to have it in the background for some of the doors, and other doors you're gonna be like, with your popcorn, this is great, you know.
I do think some people it'll be a better background watch because of the pacing, like because of the long arcs, the longer arcs. It's like, whoa, the draggy stuff is pretty draggy.
You know what this show would be perfect for? So every time, if I go home for Christmas, my mom is terrible at wrapping presents. So she gets me to wrap everyone's presents for her. This would be perfect to put on while you're wrapping Christmas presents. Like if you have to wrap like a bunch of, oh, spoiler alert, a bunch of presents from Santa, air quotes, for a large group of children. This would be the perfect drama to put on for that. You know what I mean?
So how about you, Lils?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm leaning like towards a 3.5, like 4 gearing towards 3.5, gearing towards a 4. But I think I'm leaving it at a 3.5 because I will say the pacing did hit me a little bit. I wish like the doors were a little bit more concise, and we would have invested in a better more time for like door 11 and 12, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm confused. I'm confused.com. Like, we'll talk about it.
I'll keep my thoughts to the spoiler episode, but I have some thoughts about the end of this show.
Me too. I'm still confused. I'm still confused. So I wish we would have get it, like Sky was saying, I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of the mechanics. And yes, they can hide behind the fact that it's virtual reality and whatnot, and it's not real. But I still need to know how certain things kind of work. And like it needs to make a like at least logical sense for the drama itself. It doesn't need to make sense for like the real world for us, but like this show needs to make sense for itself. So I think that was one of my biggest problems. But I will say I really enjoyed the fact that we got to see so many different, you know, stories, and I liked the characters. I liked that we had like a little found family going, and you know, they kind of kept each other going throughout the drama. So that was all exciting. But like Amanda was saying as well, I definitely agree. It felt long and yet short at the same time, which is like, this feels like a paradox here. Like it should be either or, but apparently not. So yeah, I think I'll stick on a 3.5 because I think I liked the stories themselves, the doors themselves, and also, like you guys, I did not see that twist coming. I was like, I don't understand where this came. I when it does happen, I had to like rewind. I was like, did I misread it? Like, am
I did the same thing. I was like, hold up.
I guessed it early.
Oh, Sky did a rare
I thought about it. I was like, and then I just kind of let it ride because it didn't matter.
Yeah. That was all meaningless.
God. So that is our ratings, and now this is your spoiler warning. If you guys have watched the show, then keep on listening. If not, then go and watch and come back and listen to the rest of the episode. Or if you like spoilers, keep on listening. You know, your prerogative, but it is your spoiler warning now. So guys, we can start on anything, but I do just want to start on one thing. I want to mention, because this really bugged me, and it's the reason why in the book they go into the door. And it's the fact that they get to go into these doors because in the real world, they're about to die. And if they play the game,
That
it
makes
extends
sense.
their life.
That makes
So, for example,
Right.
and also the reason why they go backwards, it also makes sense exactly like the question you were asking, Sky. What happens is, so imagine you are about to get hit by a car. It means you're imminent death. So your death is very close, right? So you go into the game and you go on a really difficult, you enter a very difficult door straight away because you need the game to survive very quickly, right? And then you revert back to the easier doors once you've completed that door. So that's kind of like how it was explained to me.
That just makes sense. See, that mechanic makes sense.
They could have discussed that for like the first, second or third episode or something. Like they could have gone over a couple of those things.
It would have changed the whole thing. It would have changed the whole thing. Because once, so Haley
we would have no
explained-
questions about the mechanics.
No,
it would be like, oh, this is
I know
sensible.
this now. So once Haley,
I assumed it was something that simple. Like,
Yeah.
I assumed there was like an easy reason.
Like there was a part of me that was like, did we just like, is the translation just weird that we're not getting?
No.
There's a few too many times where you have that kind of moment. And I had read, you had put that in the document for us, and I had read that. And then when I got to one of the later deaths, it made a lot more sense to me because I was like, okay, because up until then, everybody who had died outside of the game, like died in an accident. They get, whatever. And you're like, oh, okay. And then this character just dies. Is just sitting there and dies. Like they suddenly become very pale, very deathly ill, and and this young, like 16-year-old person dies, and you're like, what am I looking at? But because I had read that, in the book, everybody is terminally ill who goes into the game, I was like, oh, his terminal illness just caught up with him and he's dead.
Yeah, it just catches up with them. Yeah.
Right?
And it makes so much sense, doesn't it? Like, it's such a simple mechanism to why these people would choose to enter the game because they want to gain more time. So every door they pass, they can gain, the harder the doors, the more time you gain. You can gain months of life on the outside world. You can gain years of life. You can gain weeks. So that's why they choose to go in. And actually, our main character, he goes in, and once he discovers that, that's how the doors work. He actually goes and gets he goes to the hospital and he finds out he has cancer. And that's like how he finds out that he's sick. And it's like, that's why then he starts to play even more. And I'm like, this is such a tiny detail, but it makes so much sense.
But you know what? To defend the show, if they had put that in, then how could they have told us over and over how evil American capitalists are?
True. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Like I agree.
How could,
after every door, we wouldn't get a little bit about how evil American capitalists are. So,
oh my God. that was so incredibly overdone. That was like,
it always is. It was like watching.
It was so funny.
It was like watching Go-Go Squid and hearing about how they need to tell people about the glory of Chinese video gaming. Because, when I think about professional video games, what really comes to mind is that China is very underrepresented. But like this is just like, ooh, we had a pure, beautiful game here, but the Americans came in, and I'm like, no, like, stop pretending like China doesn't have capitalism.
Capitalism does ruin a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, here's the thing. It's like, I agree with you, but I don't think you're coming from a place of honesty with this criticism of capitalism show.
We don't need to hear it 30 times
in
the show. We know. We got it. We got it. And we don't disagree, but we don't need to listen. We don't need to. I guess it was trying to aid itself. So it's like, look, we can pass censorship. We can, maybe warm up to censorship.
Listen, maybe if we talk about how much we hate America, the censors will be like, I'm gonna let this one slide. They got the good attitude that we're looking for.
They did mention that a lot. But yeah, like that is, again, once Haley explained it, I was like, this makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
And I wish they would have gone down. I don't understand why they would choose not to go down that specific route.
It would have made the show actually better. Like, genuinely so much better.
It would have given it that little bit. Because there was one part where, like, when his former roommate comes into the game because he's like being paid by his boss or whatever, but like his logic isn't logicking. He's like, yes, I decided to come into the game and risk my life because I'm gonna get a huge bonus from my boss, whose company is basically in receivership if he doesn't. And I was like, where's that big payout coming from, my friend? If your boss is basically broke, why would you risk your life for money that doesn't exist? Like, what are you doing? Like,
if it's the American capitalists that are evil, why is your boss making you risk your life for money? I have questions.
Right?
Yeah.
Questions here.
Yes.
That part did make me laugh. Actually, I gave it an extra half star because of how much I would laugh every time they would talk about how evil America is. Because, like, girl, you're right, but like, you're not much better.
I mean, I will say, I'm glad we didn't have like a whole whack of like the white actors who can't act situation. But when they talked about how the sanatorium was an American sanatorium, but everybody in it, including doctors, nurses, everybody is Asian, and you're like, that's odd. Like, man. I can't imagine making like a Western series where you're talking about like the Vietnamese War, but like every single actor was white, and people would be like, wait, what are we looking at here?
People would rightfully be like, excuse me, this is a bit of bullshit.
This is a little odd, right?
One of the other changes she also mentions that one of the rules of the like doors in the book is the fact that you can't kill somebody else. You can't kill another player in the door. So if 3 people are playing that specific door, you can, however, trick others into dying. And the reason they do this is there's like weak players who will just not be able to pass the doors. But by default, if all the players but one are left standing, that player automatically gets the door opened for them because they automatically get to pass that specific door.
See, this is another mechanic that would have actually made this series like more 20 times better. Like, I can see, I know that this is an audio podcast, but if you could see Sky hearing this information,
she's just like,
being like,
oh my gosh,
what are we doing?
It's simple. Like, I knew that were probably pretty simple, and I knew that probably if they just took 5 minutes, like just 5 minutes, that's why as the door arcs dragged for me, and I was just like, we could have used some of this time, guys, just some of it to like make me care. It would make me care more about what we're doing as opposed to we're just all in the doors, we're just in the doors, we're just here. It's like, okay, we're just here doing things.
Like, I felt like it was there. I was able to extrapolate some of the stuff that was going on, but like, you hit the episode where you can't eat unless you open a box, and it's like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. They had mentioned it in the past, but like, it kind of, I thought they could have leaned into it a little bit harder, that in the earlier levels, there are characters who will basically just lock themselves in their room and they will just survive to the end of the week. They'll trust that somebody else is going to get the door open for them, and they'll just go through the door. They're not going to risk their lives. They're not going to try and kill anybody to get stuff done because that'll work. And then they keep talking about after level 6, it gets so hard. It gets so hard. It gets so hard. And then that's one of those aspects of what makes it hard, is you have to play the game now. You can't just skate by and hope for the best. You've got to get in there, or else you just die because, like, you need to eat. You're here for a week. Like, you got to get some some nourishment.
Mm-hmm. That's door number 10. And that was one of the doors that I felt like, I mean, I felt it in a couple of other doors, but I felt like that one just kept going. Like, I kept thinking, goodness, I feel like we've been here for a little while in this door. And there's like there's quite a few twists overall in that door from like, our character's dead, our character's not dead. I did think. I was like, hang on, he died in that room, but he didn't die in that room. I did keep questioning, like,
they gave him a MacGuffin, all right? They gave him a magical bracelet, but then you find out later that actually didn't fucking matter at all, because here's the real spoiler. Dude wasn't real. He escaped containment. He was an NPC the whole time who managed to go to the real world. Which I was like, you know what, Joe? Go off. All right. Why not, man? Why not? Yeah, sure. Like, why not? Why not?
Exactly. Because if these people are coming into the game, why not send, an NPC out into the real world?
Why not?
I'm just saying.
My real suggestion for this show is do not pick a favorite secondary character. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I had like a series of shenanigans happen to me. So I had 3 favorite characters. The first one was like the short-haired dude who ran the other organization. I was like, this guy, he's fun. Like they played a little cross-dressing prank on him. Like he's just a nice guy. He genuinely seems to want to help people, and then just gets fucking stabbed to death, and then dies of a heart attack because he died in the game. He dies in real life, and I was like, oh. Cool. I'm like, but it's okay. I have 2 other favorite characters. So my second favorite character was the little actress lady. I found her so charming. I thought she was so charming and fun. And then when she finally wins an acting award, dies in a horrible accident because she died in the game, dies in real life. And I was like, damn, like they're really just taking out. I was like, but it's okay. I still have a favorite character. I love the sweet, dumb little identical twin. I just think he's so cute. He's just so fun. He's so stupid. Like you just can't help but love him. Fucking they kill him too. I'm like, you know what? I'm done picking characters. Okay.
Of all the deaths, his pissed me off the most because it was like, why? Why did they take him to that door? They know he's dumb.
So annoyed.
Why did they take him with them?
And I'm like, but it's like he didn't even die by being dumb. It was just like bad luck. Like he got. But fun fact about those 2 actors, because it's just one actor. The identical twins, they are played by just one dude. But one of them they're dubbed by different people, so their voices would be different. So I thought that was a clever way to get around the identical twin gambit.
I just think they could have hired twins.
They could have just hired identical twins. Like, there must be a set of that age identical twin actors.
They had to work so hard to make that. I mean, it definitely showcases that guy's abilities. I'm not saying. Like, I mean, he did a great job. Like, totally. It's just.
You could have found some twins.
I mean, it's like we always say about GMMTV, like in Thailand, they have identical twins working for them under contract, and they still will just use one actor to play twins, and you're like, they're right there. You're already paying them. Like,
and also, it's like the population of Thailand is much smaller than the population of China. There's definitely a set of identical twins.
There's gotta be twins. Yeah.
Who could have been in the show in the industry in China? Who could have been in the show? But listen, he did a great job.
He did a great job.
You know what? It's just again,
especially that door. I paid attention to all the tricks they had to do. To like do that.
Yeah.
It's like you never show them in two in the same shot. There's always a clever blocking, like
because I think before we hadn't really seen a lot of them together. And then that specific door, so door 10, it was like they were both in the door. So, yeah.
I had laughed because, like I had said before, I watched 6 or 8 episodes and then had a break and then came back to it. And when I came back to it, I was like, wow, like the casting director must have really had it type. Like these two actors look so much alike. And it was like a good like 10, 15 minutes before I went, oh, right, because they are twins and they're played by the same person. So like, shout out to that actor because he did do a really good job of portraying two completely different characters, which was, I love a double role when it can showcase that for the actor. So
my other favorite thing about this show was how the two male leads' hairs morphed into each other over the show. Because when you start out,
they changed.
Ling Jushi had this lovely floppy, like wavy hair, but by the end of the show, him and Ron Lanju have the same hairstyle. Yeah. So I think that was supposed to be a little clever, like couples hair situation. Also, he dresses nicer. Like as the show goes on, he starts wearing like turtlenecks and blazers. Yeah, he just. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. One of them's
He's
like
letting
the
his
stylish
boyfriend
gay.
dress him now.
That's exactly what I'm like. One of them's the stylish gay who's like dressing his sloppy partner. Like, I understand what's happening here. I see why this show got banned for gay stuff. I understand. It did. We're just
the fun thing is, though, in the actual novel, one of the reasons that Lanju always goes into the door with Ji Shui, and he actually cross dresses in the doors, so he ends up always playing like Ji Shui's girlfriend, and he always does like the most clingiest of like scenes with him in the book, and like he needs to protect him and whatnot, and that's kind of like where a lot of the fun comes from, and like a lot of like the what's the word I'm looking for, a lot of the wordplay on their names comes from. So because they were saying, so Ran Biaju means white and clean, and Zhu Meng means cute, and that's the names that he tends to use like when he's cross-dressing in the doors. So I'm just like, these are just, I mean, I knew this was stuff we were never gonna see because but it's still fun to know about the actual book, and it makes a lot more sense because you could see their relationship developing throughout the show, and that was quite nice to see, I think, because I think by the end even our male lead he did eventually figure out that he was an NPC, but even I think he got very got with that.
That, you know what, I feel like a Thai remake of this show would go so hard though. Because they'd be like, cross-dressing? Yes. Explicit gay? Yes. Are they we're gonna make it about they're actually dying in real life? We're gonna make it about they're dying in real life. And guess what? We don't care about American capitalists. This is Thailand, baby. It can just be whatever.
I feel like a Thai drama, they would do one door per episode. It would be 12 episodes, and they would boom, 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 boom,
maybe
boom,
13.
Boom.
You might get like the 13th episode as an epilogue. Like,
but
you know what? Right? I think we should get in contact with some of these Thai producers.
GMMTV. Go buy some rights, please and thank you. Remake this show so we can see it in all of its full glory.
You know what, Amanda? You know who would kill? Earth Mix. Just putting that out there, just letting that marinate in the minds of the world for all the Thai BL fans. They'd kill it.
They
Earth
would.
Mix,
they would.
But Earth is the one that does all the cross-dressing.
Absolutely.
The other world,
absolutely.
Right? Like,
absolutely. All right. Back to the show.
Just what could have been. Do you guys have like a favorite door? Like a door that was like your favorite to watch overall, do you think? I don't know.
I was thinking about it, and I think I like the one with the one-legged girl.
Yes.
Because the triggers, like the death triggers in that are fair in a sense, right? Like all the other worlds, it's kind of like, oops, I accidentally got rained on, or I was forced to open a box, or whatever. And it's like, in this one, it's like, if you're just a good person, you're not going to die. Like, if you just don't participate in the bullying, like, then you just won't die. You'll be fine. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, okay, I fair. That felt fair to me. I was like, okay. And it was also a good story. Like, I appreciated the story that was there. So
I mean,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in that same line of thought, the triplets and the eggs, like they had to look up.
Yes,
That
was
was
a really
fairly
good.
straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't drop the egg.
Don't drop the egg. Just keep your egg safe. So
Yeah.
I think that was a
And I
very
did
easy logic to
the
follow.
time travel aspect of that one, and
Yeah.
when they were like finally reveal exactly, it was like, oh my god, that's so sad, but it's so good, but it's so
I really liked the egg one. I thought that was fun because like it was, you could understand, like as soon as everything's revealed, you're like, oh, this actually makes sense. You know,
right?
like, and there is like a bit. See, my problem is I like the ones that had like a bit of gameplay to them. So I did like the box one because it was the first one that felt like, oh, we're actually playing a game with understandable rules that anyone can follow. You walk in and there was, though they don't find this for many a time, there was a set of instructions for the level of how you play this pretty straightforward game with very easy rules. And it's like that's normally how games work. So it's like I would hesitate to call most of the previous levels games because
like they had the gaming aspect of, like, a lot of video games I play are more the like you're going around and you have to find the hints and the clues and then put them together in the right order. So it's got that aspect of video gaming to it. But like you said, like the rules are kind of like, okay.
Like you're not informed of what you're supposed to be doing in each one. Like, how would you know? Like in the sanatorium episode, how would you know that you're not supposed to go into this one random room? No one did that. They just sort of figured it out because someone told them on the outside. It was just like,
okay.
I really liked door 11, but like I barely got to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I like the concept of that.
Yeah,
where
like,
it's
a really
like
neat concept, and then it was like kind of shoved aside, and then
you get 20 minutes of you have to now face every boss you faced before.
And then the door, like the door itself, like the where there were two, and then the key, like the way words and all these things. Like I thought that was really well done. I was like, wow, we can't just
spend a little
that its day a little bit, like spend a little bit of time there.
When that one first started up, I was mad because I was like, how come the bad guy gets all of his dead crew and the good guys don't get, and then they did, but like I would have liked a dead crew like walking along, just a big battle scene of them all.
And it was like, and it was very charming to have like the three lady ghosts like sitting there chatting with each other, scene. Being like, "Oh, we should go like hang out more and stuff." And I'm like, "Yes, queen, yes, queen." Yeah. So it did have the energy of like written by a man who does not spend time with women. It's like, yeah, what do women talk about? Hair. They talk about getting their hair did. Absolutely.
I did also think that something about the show, definitely the stories that are told definitely have an aspect of like women were at the center of a lot of those stories, and like the misogyny they suffer and the like and the things that happen to them because of men. And I was like, this feels like perhaps the light novel might have been written by a woman, because like those stories don't usually come across. Men don't usually tell those stories that way. But I liked that, again, that I think that's one of the aspects of the storytelling that could have gone maybe a little bit more direct, a little bit harder, was the idea that he goes into these stories and he solves them a way that other people didn't solve them. Like he solves them with compassion in a way that other people, blunt instrument kind of solving, whereas he was like finessing these doors. And then that came back and helped him when he got to the 11th door, because all these people whose lives he fixed in previous doors came back and had his back, which was cool.
Do you want to know something? That's something that also is explained and talked about in the novel.
Of course it is. Well, like I get that like TV and novels can't tell exactly the same stories. But sometimes you're just like, why would you cut that part?
Especially because I felt like they were trying to get that across. Like they had sort of half of the conversation and things, and you were kind of like, okay, I think I'm reading between the lines, and I think I get what they're trying to tell me, but like, just tell me. Like, you could have just made it a little more clear, and it would have made the whole thing just a little bit of a better watch.
Basically, how Haley explained it was because you're allowed to trick others into dying and whatnot, the 11th and 12th door are kind of impassable, because if you play the whole game in that way, or if you play the game like, you know, the X company, you get to the end and you don't have any allies to help you to get to the, you know, through the last door. And that's kind of like the whole point of it. Our male lead goes through it because he has solved these cases with like compassion, that now the ghosts or the NPCs and even the friends that he's made in the game kind of stand with him to kind of push him through that last door. And that's kind of like why nobody has really ever, you know, gone through the last door, because nobody has thought to play the game in the way that he has played it. So it was, you know
what, I don't think that actually reflects reality, because the amount of people I know who will play video games that give you like moral choices, but they're like, I always have to pick the good choice because I feel bad if I pick the evil choice. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm the same way. I'm like, if I'm playing like a, you know, like a Fable or something, I'm just like, no, I gotta pick the nice choice. Like,
I don't
want to be mean to these fake people.
Shall we talk about the ending? Or like try, because I'm very confused about the ending. Like, I'm very, very confused about the ending.
The ending
I feel like it. Go.
Okay, the ending to me felt like we ran out of budget, because it was like, oh, about to enter the 12th door, and it's like, well, they never got around to programming the 12th door, and also it was all a dream. And I'm just like, what?
Okay.
What? Yeah. It was all, we're doing it was all a dream, and you were there, and you were there. Like, what are you talking about? And then it's just like, and then I'm going to spend the rest of my life making my coma dream real. And also 50 years will pass. And the best way that we as a company that has done this show that has a bunch of special effects are going to show you that these people are older is we're going to give them mustaches. And I was like, that's
cool.
Cool. Sure. I guess we can all have mustaches now.
Last side of the it was all a dream ending, it makes all of the lack of game mechanics make more sense, because he was in a dream the whole time. So
he was just having a hallucination.
You know, okay. But I thought, for me, it was a really enjoyable show, and I don't usually love It Was All a Dream, but I can kind of understand how you get to the ending and go, I don't know what to do with this, with what I've done. Okay. But it feels extremely tragic to me that this man then spent 50 years creating the technology that would allow him to go back and live in virtual reality with these friends he made in his coma dream, instead of actually living his life. Like, he never actually went out and lived his life. He just...
Like, that's depressing to think about.
It's so depressing.
They tried to make it seem charming and lovely, and it was like...
You're like, no, this is a tragedy.
This is sad. Yeah, this is sad.
Calls his buddy, and he's like, come see what I've done. And he's like, why would I do that when I have grandkids to hang out with?
He's like, I gotta take care of my grandkid. I'm busy. Like, I have a life. Dude.
So here's my deal. Why did we never like learn more or meet or anything the programmer, like, ex-friend guy?
He didn't exist.
We never see his face.
He wasn't real. Because, like, he doesn't matter, because when he gets out...
I'm just saying that's my picky thing about the show.
Yeah.
Because,
like, it's like, he's like, oh, he was never a programmer.
Him through the whole thing, and you're like, so you think there's going to be, like, some big reveal at the end, face-wise, right? Because they've hidden his face.
Because it was him. Like,
even if they had done that, like you said, like, if they had the big reveal was that, like, the hoodie fell off, and it was him, and that's when he realized it was all a dream.
That would have been great.
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. Like, great.
Like, we got again. Or even if it was just like, he was the other dude, right? Like, and the reason that he doesn't remember his face is because in the earthquake, he had brain damage. That would have been a more satisfying, like, and the reason experiencing this coma dream where, you know, his friend actually saves his life this time is because his friend chose to save all those other people instead, right? And that would have been like, oh, a cathartic, like, oh, this makes sense. You can now forgive your friend for that because your brain is telling you he would have if he could have, you know?
That
like
was kind of the point of the game, right? Was the idea of that this was supposed to be 12 levels of catharsis that people would go through and become better people in the end. But then it was, you know, corrupted by American capitalism. But like, like that would have also been a much more satisfying ending if the guy in the hoodie had been, you know, his partner, his best friend in the game. And then, you know, you have it was all a dream, whatever. And then this guy comes back from overseas and they bump into each other again. And you have that sort of open-ended, and now they can maybe move forward in their life ending would be much more satisfying than I did nothing with my life but capitalism in order to
get back into my fantasy
to have
land.
a virtual reality lover. Like,
weird.
Please.
Listen, the show is very enjoyable, but that ending, I was like,
that ending, that last half hour, you're just like, oh.
Because he was funny because Amanda was texting me like as she was watching like the last 3 episodes, and she was like, oh man, like this last episode, like it really like bumped up the notch for me. And I'm like, Amanda, hold on the rating for a few more episodes, please. I'm gonna need you to come back to that thought in a couple hours.
I will say they made the scene cute at the end. It was cute.
But it was also sad because
and also they're still young, and he's now the mustached, which clearly the mustache means you're ancient now. You got the mustache.
It's true.
You and your 70s, okay? You're ancient with the mustache. But it's like, this is depressing. This isn't like a fun cathartic ending. This is you really wasted your life, huh?
Well, it's also very questionable, like it shows a certain mindset of people too, where like they want people to be what they want them to be instead of who they actually are. Because all of these people were real people out in the world who had lives and personalities and stuff. He could have gone and made friends with these other people, but instead of making friends with these people, he just did nothing. You know, I mean, he did something, but he did work instead of relationships, and that's sad to me.
And then the whole point of the show was like forging relationships and like moving forward with your life and like not giving into negative emotions, and he just did all of that instead. And it's just like, wow, okay,
it would have been
we're all screwed.
Terrible way to end it, but also more satisfying in a sense would have been if it had ended with him like he winds up in a sanatorium because he's like trapped in his little brain, you know, and you have that same ending, but like you realize it's just because he's like catatonic in this, you know, hospital or whatever. It would have been like, oh my god, that ending sucked, but also it would make more sense. Like it would be.
See, the thing is, I wouldn't have even think that. I've been like, damn, like that is a bold ending,
right?
Like, like you know, I'd be like, damn, they're really doing this. Okay, cool. But it's like the ending felt like the ending that someone thinks is a happy ending because they haven't actually thought of the implications surrounding this ending that we have, and we're like, no, this is depressing. Like this
is depressing. Yeah,
like I would have rather he just died. You know, like
because this man's just doing this. He's just alone for 50 years working on this game to get back to the people that he kind of met.
But he could have just met those people in real life and actually forged relationships with the people they actually are. They were all there. Like
they were.
Like you could have just
all seemingly nice people. Like
it's like the guy was like, "Yo, you want a cell phone screen protector?" I'm like, "This is an opening for you to now make a new friend." But instead, you're just gonna be crazy. Like
they make a point of showing us all of these characters in the real world, but then they don't do anything with it because it's just like, oh, fine, I'll just go create my own in like this virtual reality game. And I'm like, it doesn't
very unhealthy
right.
mentally. He's very unhealthy mentally. but he has a mustache and baby powder in his hair, so we're all good,
You know what?
Baby
The
powder.
other idea would have been cool, would have been if he had spent 50 years creating a virtual reality situation. Like, you know how it's common in sci-fi, like that idea that you could like download your brain into, right? So like, because going back to what the book was about, the idea that you could allow people to live on forever who have, you know, who die early or die young or are dying of whatever, that they could insert themselves into this virtual reality where you could continue to be with the people that you love after they die. And then that ending is, you know, he's old and he's dying and he dies, and but thankfully he's created this technology that allows him to have a wonderful afterlife, you know, or whatever. And you're like, okay, again, that would have been something. That would have been just that little bit more.
He could have had a wonderful afterlife until the American capitalists come in and monetize it. We all know capitalism too.
Well, Rose has been wanting to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from what I gather from reading like little bits from like online and stuff about like how the actual novel ends, is it's the 12th door. The 12th door is a redo of sorts, a reset. He has to do everything all over again, but he has to wonder whether he's in the real world or not. Like whether so he does go out of the game in quotes. And he's like, you know, that part in the show where he's like, am I in the real world? Am I like, after he's wakened, and he doesn't understand. That's what happens in the 12th door. He's like, he doesn't know whether he's in the real world or not. And then he has to like play the game all over again to clear it. And then that takes him like a year. And then he's able to like close the game down and meet all of these people. And like, from what I gather, like the other male lead kind of comes out of the game as well and kind of like stays with them situation. And that's like
sick as hell. That's good.
Yeah, see? So from what I gather, I might be wrong, because like I was trying to get like a clear idea of how the book was ending, but that's like what I gathered from people explaining stuff like on, you know, Reddit and stuff like that. So I mean, even if he couldn't show like the two guys together or whatever, I feel like the 12th door should have had more me. Like we've been building to this 12th door for the whole show, and it's like I said, to me it definitely all comes down to pacing, because we should have done the doors shorter and then like made a bigger impact on door 11 and 12, because those are the two doors that supposedly no one has ever passed. So those are the two doors that should be you know, have the most impact,
and it's what we were building up to. Did what it did.
It fell very flat.
It could
like I know that it sounds like we're being so critical of this show, but like I genuinely enjoyed
we enjoyed it.
Like
because we were invested.
We were like, listen, it's okay to love things that also disappoint you.
Exactly.
Insert joke about my mother.
A crappy ending doesn't bother you if you didn't actually invest yourself in the characters and the story. Right? So,
and it's like the ending wasn't good, but it wasn't the worst ending I've ever seen. No. You know, it wasn't like, it didn't like retcon. Well, it did, but like it didn't make everything else that happened in the show meaningless, because it clearly meant something to the character, even if it never happened. But
it made it like his journey, I suppose. In some sort of, you know, roundabout way. It made it his journey. But still, you know, I enjoyed it. I think the show is still a good, fair watch. I think it's different to anything I've watched before, personally. I don't think I've watched anything that's kind of like, you know, similar to this show, which for me was something that I really liked, because, you know, nowadays we do get a lot of samey shows. Nothing wrong with that, each their own, but it is nice to see something that's like, you know, new and fresh in a sense. So they tried, and I think I enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed the acting as well, actually. We haven't really touched on that, but I enjoyed really the acting. So I think overall I really enjoyed it, and like Amanda was saying, we wouldn't have been so disappointed or so annoyed at the ending if we hadn't cared for the show the rest of the way. Because if you don't care for something, then you just been like, you just got to the end. It's like, oh, okay, that's how it ends. But no, we're annoyed because it could have gone in other directions. And like I said, I think with just a couple of tweaks, this show could have been so much better.
I feel like if they had just kept it closer to the source material.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
And then in the show, even they were trying to make it like, oh, he was going through a growth arc with like, not ignoring like how he wanted to develop a game, like he needed to grow as a person in all these different ways. And then it kind of just didn't seem like it really did that. I mean, he went and developed a game, so I guess that's the way they said he was successful in that. But yeah, if they just a little bit more source material, and it would have.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to do all of the source material, just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, how did he feed himself and clothe himself for 50 years if he's just like where's this money coming from if he's just working on
Listen,
this
I have
game?
a theory. I have a theory where he got the money, but the Chinese government isn't gonna like it. I think it might involve those evil American capitalists looking for something. But he's you know what? But good on him. He's pulling one over on them, taking their money and not making a profitable game, just making his own personal paradise to chill in.
Yeah.
His cat comes back, the corgi's there, the gang's all here, baby. And he has a mustache, so
he has a mustache, and I'm like, because everybody is exactly how he remembered them to be. I don't know, was it 50 years ago? Did it say he spent 50 years? Yeah. So 50 years, but he's just like there, like Natalia said, baby powder in his hair to make it, white hair and whatnot, the mustache. But it is like we said. I think it is a bit of a. Although on the surface it looks like a happy ending, like if you just scratch a little bit, it doesn't really take that much. Like it doesn't even take that much. Like it's pretty tragic.
But I will also say, if someone likes this show, like if they like the virtual reality or the gameplay or whatever, you might like, death game type stuff, like the genre of, Alice in Borderland and Squid Game and all those types of things. And I understand those are more horror and darker and all those stuff, but the reality is it's kind of in a similar vein as far as the door like
especially like Alice in Borderland for sure is very much like that.
And except if you like more of the gameplay aspect, but like the twisty storytelling and stuff, if you can find it, Crossfire was like had a lot of story to it, but I also thought just vibes in general, completely different plot line, but this vibe-wise kind of reminded me of Journey Across the Night, C-drama from a few years ago. That also dealt with like mental health and a whole lot of different stuff, but like had that same sort of like short story arcs that went through with a overarching one. So like if you enjoyed this form of storytelling, you might like that one.
Crossfire's been on my to watch list for ages, and it's so hard to find. You can watch it on WeTV, but you have to have a VPN turned on. I think it's to like Malaysia or something, and that's.
I think it used to be on iQIYI, I think, is where I watched it, and it was just there, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'll watch it. And then it was gone, and I was like, well,
it's one of those that as soon as
well, what you gonna do? What are you gonna do? These things in the streaming world, right?
True. I think that is it, guys. Have you got any last thoughts about this show at all that you want to mention?
I know it sounds like we didn't like it from that ending, but
we did
like it. Like,
go back to the beginning
and then remember the energy we had. Just,
The thing is, two things can be true at the same time. You can very much enjoy a show and not enjoy the ending. And, it doesn't take away. I mean, some endings do take away from the show as a whole, but I don't think this one does take away from, the enjoyment of the rest of the show. So I think that's like a nice note to leave it on, that, two things can be true at the same time. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on to review this with me. Where can people find you? Listen and whatnot to let them know.
I feel like the real answer question is, where can't people find us to listen to? We are on pretty much every streaming service that Podbean sends it to, and we're on Podbean, Spotify. Also, we do have a YouTube. We do all of our episodes in video. So you can go to our YouTube, just search Certified Noonas, and also our website has every episode you can listen to, certifiednoonas.com, and we're on Instagram and Blue Sky, and we have Discord too, if you're into that. I think we're pretty easy to find if you want to check us out.
You guys are. You definitely are. Again, thank you so much for popping over. I'll make sure to put all of your socials down in the link.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Thanks for having us.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. That is it, guys. That is the episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and we shall see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.